And I want to share with you not just this introductory video, but other videos that I have that I've shot from my place that are maintenance videos that go show how to do the basic yearly maintenance that needs to be done on my equipment. And I would like to share it and put it out there for the market that everybody could look at it, and maybe you might find yourself in the position that you need to do your own maintenance. And some of this stuff really isn't all that well explained. And I want to go and show you at least how I do it at my place. And then I will be working on my equipment, nothing else. And my equipment is all corking, primarily corking. My rail terminal, when we built it, we chose to make it an IDEX Corporation terminal. That means I have corking compressors, I have corking pumps, I have all the other things that go along with that. I have like a Viking gear drive. I run Top Tech driver interfaces for my software. I run LC meter equipment. I have other components and things that are inside the IDEX Corporation of companies. And so everything that I'll reference to and deal with is just equipment that I have. And when it comes to the corking equipment, everything I'll reference will be straight out of their manual. A manual that you get a paper copy of when you buy their equipment, but you can also go to corking.com, and on there you can download the latest information, the latest manuals that they have. And the second thing I want to do is I want to provide, if possible, some encouragement to you. If you're another end user like me, you have a smaller terminal, and it's like me, it's all up to you to do this stuff, to do your job. There's a lot of people counting on you. You have a lot of responsibilities. And I want to just add this as perhaps just another resource for you. And I also want to encourage you that there are a lot of people out there, and perhaps more people than you're aware of, who want to help you, who want to see you succeed. And as I begin this, I want to preference that this video, all the other videos that will follow, are paid for by me. I do all this on my own time. The equipment that I bought myself. Everything I do on my own time. This is not a company sponsored thing. And all the opinions that I have, and I have a lot of opinions, are all mine. And they don't necessarily reflect my company or any of my suppliers or any of the other people that I deal with. So anything else out there that I say or do that you or others may not agree with, just know that it's just me. That's just how I see it, and that's how I do it. And if I do it, you can do it too. And so I want to just make that crystal clear that everything that is said and shared is just me. It's all me and all mine. So getting into it, trying to think of the best way to phrase this, and some of this will get edited out. No one that has any success in life has success in business. Does it without the active help and participation of other people. And I've had a lot of success in my business. And throughout it all, I've had other people come alongside, work with me and support me, want to see me succeed, almost as much as I want to see myself succeed. But I wasn't aware of all of them. I wasn't aware of most of them. And I've been in the propane industry now for almost 32 years. And in that 32 years, I've gained a lot of knowledge, a lot of insight. But no matter how much I've learned, part of maturity is realizing you may know a lot, but you don't know it all. You may understand a lot, but you don't understand it all. And you can see a lot, but you don't see it all. And that's where the beauty and the strength of others comes alongside, and they can help get you where you need to be. One of those areas, of course, is probably the same area that you draw a lot of your information and resources from. That's just your basic suppliers. My main propane part suppliers are Gas Equipment Company, Berquist, and Dealers LP. I've known off and on the people in especially Gas Equipment and Dealers and Berquist, and before them Blocker Equipment. I've known those people for decades, and they've been a great help to me in different aspects of my time in different jobs. When I took on the job of building and running a propane rail terminal, I brought in all the experience that I had, and in many ways I found out that it was insufficient. You run into problems that you don't always anticipate, and you're not always given the luxury of time, the time to sit and think it out, the time to work it out, and the time to get it done, because there's always the pressure of everything else going along with your job to try to get you and keep you pushed. I reached out because we bought all of our equipment, all of our main equipment, we bought from Gas Equipment out of their branch in Indianapolis, Indiana. The people that work there were great people. They were helpful. They would do everything they could, answer whatever questions I had to the best of their ability, and they were honest enough to say that they didn't know an answer and they would go and look for it. And when I had trouble, I had a few problems, a few startup problems that were very difficult. And so I just was being very difficult by always pestering and trying to get answers. And they were always very good at trying to help me out, because they wanted to see me succeed. And at this point, I would like to give a good shout out to two of the men in particular at Gas Equipment. Men that I've come to really like, I've gotten to know for decades. And that's, first of all, Jim England, and the other is Bill Fisher. I hope that you will have men like that and people like that in your life, in your part of the propane industry. I really hope you do, because people like that will come alongside you, and they will go above and beyond to help you out. And they weren't the only two at Gas Equipment. There were others, and the problem is once you start naming names, you always forget somebody. Now, Gas Equipment also has in one of their branches that specializes in bulk plant, big bulk plant, is their division in Texas. And the man that I deal with the most down there, his name is Kevin Pruitt. And Kevin has built another core group of individuals around him that are pretty close to being as passionate about their jobs as Kevin is about his. When it comes to the bigger stuff, and now especially when it comes to the electronic end of things, Kevin is my go-to guy. He's the one I have to reach out to and I rely on a lot. And when there's something that even Kevin comes up against, he goes and he starts making phone calls and sending emails, and he endeavors to get me a response and an answer. And for that, I'm very grateful. And there are others. If you get into Berquist, once again, you run into a lot of people that go out of their way and they help. The one I deal with the most is Dave Leonard. He's out of their branch in Toledo, Ohio. Dave's just an awesome person. He is great at his job. He wants to see me succeed. He wants to see all of his clients and customers succeed. And if you don't have somebody like that as a supplier, I would encourage you to reach out to these two companies, and hopefully they will be for you what they've been for me. Another supplier I want to commend, would like to commend, is Imperial Supplies. Same thing, I have a problem naming names simply because by the time this is seen, who knows where they'll be. They'll still be in their job or not, or they've been promoted up or moved on. But my main rep with Imperial Supplies is Ben Hendrickson. And Imperial Supplies, in case you don't know, has been bought and is owned by Grainger. And Imperial Supplies also bought a small little company called Zorro. So if you do any business with them, and you can go through your Imperial Supplies customer sales rep, and you can buy your stuff. Now, I get it at a better discount through Imperial. When I buy Grainger stuff, I already got a discount because I got an account with Grainger. I get an even better price when I get it through Imperial Supplies. And then I've also got a good sales rep in Dealers LP. I don't do much business with Dealers LP simply because my initial contracts of everything was all done through Gas Equipment. Dealers also a Rego distributor, so I do business with Dealers LP. I just don't do that much. And when it comes to Dealers LP, my sales rep is Jason Carr. He is helpful. A lot of people are friendly. His is genuine. And he has never once failed to get back with me on special requests, special pricing, other things that I've needed a competitive quote on. He's been very good for that, and he works hard. And again, there's another customer sales rep that wants to see me succeed. Another area I want to encourage you in is I want to encourage you to be your own advocate, to speak up for yourself and what's important for you, and for you to do your job and you to do it well. And that entails speaking up, asking questions, and not being satisfied until you get answers, meaningful answers. One thing I learned earlier in life was that no one else will really care that much about your problems until you make them about as miserable about it as you are. And if they get miserable enough, they'll probably get motivated enough to really finally help you get some answers. So I want to encourage you to be your own advocate. Stand up for yourself. And if you need help and nobody's getting you answers, just keep pushing. Keep pushing. And if no one's coming alongside to help you, just keep pushing. Just keep going. You will have to deal with, if you haven't already, you will have to deal with the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration. You will have to deal with OSHA. You will have to deal with other members of the alphabet soup of federal and state government. And in that regard, you need to be as proactive as you can be. And one of the ways to be your own advocate, and one way to be proactive is you need to write out your operating procedures. How it is that you do what you do. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be all inclusive at first. It doesn't have, and we're not writing War and Peace. We're not writing the great American novel. We're just writing out what you need to that outlines what you do. If you have not had the distinct pleasure of a surprise FRA inspection, let me say, it's not all bad, but it ain't all good either. The best way to face any kind of a federal or state oversight inspection is to write out what you do. Don't worry about not knowing every little in and out on all the rules. I'm telling you, none of them know all of the in and outs and all of the rules. It's not possible. It's like with the IRS. If you read the fine print on virtually all IRS documents down in there, it'll tell you how many grades of education you have to have in order to understand and properly fill out the forms required. And by the IRS's own estimation, you have to have 26 grades of education to understand the IRS tax code. Well, nobody understands it all. And your FRA inspector that comes out to your place, they aren't going to know every single thing there is to know. But they do know what matters. And they're going to focus in on that. Same thing with the OSHA if they ever show up. EPA, those gomers ever show up. So write out your SOPs, write out what you do. You can always improve it, modify it. But you can't improve and modify something that does not exist. So write it out. Sit down and write out just what you do, step by step by step. And then begin to add to that as your understanding grows and as your business grows. You're going to need to find the copies of 49 CFR parts. I believe it's parts 100 through 184 or 185 inside there. And you got to go buy the book. And of course, there's only like 2 or 3 full pages that actually have anything that apply to you, but you need to know it. Same thing with OSHA. OSHA is like 20, I think it's 29 CFR part, whatever, I don't remember, that you need to get up in there. When it comes to the NFPA books, you need NFPA 58. I recommend you buy the handbook and not just the code book. Code book's like $75 to $90. Buy the handbook is somewhere around $170. But the handbook is nice because the handbook has an explanation of all the different court rulings and industry standards as they apply to particular parts of it. Get you one. They come out every 3 years, get you the 2020 version is what I've got. Then your other NFPA version is NFPA 704. That's about placarding, labeling, signage. And you don't know all the ins and outs, but there's always going to be somebody, probably on a regulatory person, investigator, that's going to know enough of them to trip you up and cause you grief. But it has been my personal experience, and I've talked to a few others, and their experience has been the same. If you have it, just have it. Incomplete, imperfect, but you have it, and you have it in writing, and then you follow what you write out. They will be far more lenient. They're going to be far more willing to say, well, you're out there, somebody's pitching and you're swinging, so we can work with that. And they'll give a report and they'll list all the things that they want you to change and improve, and they'll give you a timeline in which to do it. They'll threaten you with a boatload of fines. Unless you're going to be obstinate and not listen to them, they'll work with you. Even if you miss the due date, they'll work with you if you're absolutely trying. And so get into 704. It'll tell you about storage tanks. It'll tell you about other things, about placarding and about how to label it, how to do it. One way as far as your normal everyday stuff is pretend you are what if some random stranger walks in there at your place of business and picks up a bottle that's not labeled? How do you warn them? Well, that's where 704 comes in, and they recommend that you get these labels and you put it on things and everything's labeled. That's where I get all mine from Imperial Supplies and or Granger, and some other smaller things I get from Amazon. But it's just labeling all of that stuff, and you grow and be kind to yourself. Cut yourself a lot of slack, because I'm here to tell you, the Archangel Gabriel could come down from heaven, open up a business, and somebody's going to come along and poke holes in what he does and tell him all the things he failed to do. And I ain't him. And if you're him, you're not going to waste your time listening to this video. So cut yourself a lot of slack. But just start. Just start. Imperfect, doesn't matter. Just start. And then review. One of the things that they'll get on is, how often do you review what you do? All right, review it. Set it up. Once a year, put it on the calendar, review your stuff. Whenever things change, review your stuff, update. And ask other people what do they do, how do they do it. Because it needs to be written down. There's an old expression, if you know anybody that's ever been a nurse or been in other occupations like that, where documentation is important. If it ain't writ, it ain't shit. Well, get your stuff in writing. My first SOPs, front to back, covered 2 pages. My SOPs today, front to back, probably cover, with all my supplements, probably somewhere between 60 and 70 pages. It just gets into more depth, and I customize it for my company, so that when I'm dead and gone, the next person comes, takes over, they can just grab that as SOPs and they can follow them, and they themselves now have something that they can follow and modify. And along those lines, I would also encourage you to create a maintenance calendar. I go out and I buy a paper calendar. It's a rather large one. Oh, it's about 15, 16 inches by 22 inches. And it's got a lot of open space, a lot of room. And every December, I sit down and I populate that maintenance calendar with all of the preventative maintenance and scheduled maintenance that I want to do for the upcoming year. And you just sit down, and there are certain things you do, and that's the other thing. You probably are doing more things right than you realize. And you're probably doing a lot of things, more things right than a lot of people want to give you credit. But you need to write it down. You need to prove it. I trust me. I bet if I spent a few minutes with you and got to know you, I'd probably trust you too. And if you said, well, yeah, I checked all my fire extinguishers. I did an emergency shutdown test. I did whatever it is I said I did. Just keep in mind, as far as all government reporting agencies are concerned, you're probably lying. Their attitude is nobody but them tells the truth. And if you ever get involved in any kind of a legal dispute, ain't no judge, ain't no lawyer going to believe anything you say. So just write it out, document it, the day you did it and what you did, and then you just go a whole year in advance. And you write it all out, because the more you grow, the more your understanding improves. You're going to realize, okay, I should be doing this, I need to add this, and well, this practice is obsolete. I found a superior way to do it, and so you'll change it. We'll have a maintenance calendar, and on that maintenance calendar you get to fill it out, because it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to say, yeah, I did that in April. I know I did that in April. I'm really positive it was in April. And I've done that, and sometimes you actually go back and check everything. You realize, well, actually I did that back in January, not April. Live and learn. Get yourself a maintenance calendar. I would encourage that. And that's another way you advocate for yourself. It's another way you fight for yourself. It's another way you set yourself up to succeed, not to fail. You're obviously not the type of person who is just going to wilt, give up, and walk away. Otherwise, you never would be in the position that you are. And you may be in a position that may indeed feel overwhelming, or you have a lot of expectations placed on your shoulders and not a lot of tools in your toolbox because nobody's really giving it to you. Well, advocate for yourself. Don't worry about changing everything. Don't worry about improving everything. Find 1, 2, and at the most 3 things to change and improve and how you run your business. Focus on them. Focus on what you determine to be the 1, 2, or 3 main things. Focus on them. Establish them. Make them part of your daily practice, your habit. Make it your routine. And see how it goes. You might find a whole lot of little problems just automatically disappear. And then when you get them in and you've established that, then you can look around and say, okay, here's something else to improve. Add it. But if you try to take on too much too soon, it's overwhelming. And I just keep coming back to the same thing. Give yourself some grace. Cut yourself some slack. You aren't going to fix it all. You aren't going to accomplish it all at once. But you will eventually accomplish it. And another thing that might give you encouragement is as you start writing out, like say, a maintenance calendar, you start actually writing out your standard operating procedures as you are currently doing them, not as how somebody thinks you should, but you start off writing out your standard operating procedures as you actually do them. You may be surprised at how well you are doing than what you think. So as we get into it, I'm going to share some teaching things. I got a whiteboard set up to try to explain some of the things that I learned when it relates to propane rail terminal operations. The other things, I have no intention, I won't share anything proprietary about my actual company. I won't share anything that would be, in my opinion, anything compromising. But I don't need to. I don't need to do any of that to try to help you and just get out some information.